the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
Heavyweight fight between two of the nation's best, two of the deepest teams in the country, two of the stingiest teams in the country, two of the best coaches in the country. What say you? Why will Michigan win this game, and why will Alabama ultimately win this game to start out?
So before I get into this game, I want to throw some stats out at you. SEC is 4-1 versus the Big Ten in the college football playoff to this point, in the 4-team playoff era. This is the fourth time now that Michigan and Alabama have played in a bowl game. However, all four of those matchups were in the state of Florida. So we're seeing the Rose Bowl. That's more Big Ten country, even though it's, I guess now it technically is, with UCLA being in the Big Ten. But we'll see. Michigan loves the Rose Bowl. So I look at this matchup and I feel like Michigan played like a 3-game season. Like maybe you throw in Maryland and it was like a 4-game season. But it feels like until whatever the year that they played Penn State, what was it, like November 10th or something? It feels like that's when their season started. And during those 3 games, I didn't add the Maryland game in there, versus Ohio State, Michigan, and versus Ohio State, Penn State, and Iowa. Michigan averaged 3.8 yards per carry in those 3 games. I think Alabama has a better run defense than any of those teams. Like statistically, they might not, but whatever, Big Ten, all those teams have like the same defense. It's crazy. But Alabama is just so physical on the defensive line. Like I don't see Michigan having success consistently running on Alabama in this game at all. And if it comes down to JJ McCarthy, like literally what I said Penn State had to do, what I said Ohio State had to do, make JJ McCarthy win the game. Neither one of those teams made JJ McCarthy win the game, and Michigan was able to win. I think there's no way that they can win versus Alabama without JJ McCarthy like having to be the one that makes some plays. And personally, I don't think JJ McCarthy can make those plays. But I mean, I don't see JJ McCarthy going 7 for 11 for 65 yards and then beating Alabama. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't think that's possible. So I think they're going to have to get something out of their passing game. And with what this Alabama secondary has been as of late, like, I don't know. You just have to go back. Like Alabama, it's hard to judge because if we're judging their body of work, like they've had a lot of unimpressive performances. Like, I mean, they're a 4th and 31 away from not even being in this game. So you look at them and Auburn was able to run for 200 yards on them. And it's like, yeah, do we just kind of throw that out? Like, it's the Iron Bowl. It's crazy. That's definitely our SEC bias coming in. But I just have to go back to what they did against Georgia the most recently on a neutral site. And that was one of the best offenses in college football this year. And they were only able to get 24 points. One of those touchdowns being scored 3-4 minutes left in the game. So if Georgia's only able to score 24 points on Alabama, I don't know how Michigan can possibly break the 20-point mark.
No, and those are all great points. And I think it is really hard to see Michigan winning this game if JJ McCarthy does not outplay Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe, I think what's funny too is like I still just don't feel great about this team and either team really. And I wrote down like, why doesn't Michigan feel better than they were a year ago? Like it's not like a whole lot's changed. Blake Corum's healthy now. Like they lost Blake Corum last year and you still felt
like
better about him.
Game. The run game just is not. I feel like it's the run game. It's just not as dominant. Like what did Corum have like a year ago? Like 1,800 yards and like 20 something touchdowns. And Donovan Edwards was also like flirting with like 1,000 yards. Like it was an insane rushing attack a year ago. And this year it's just been fine. It feels like they've been, kind of on autopilot half the season. So you don't really know, like they're probably going to pull out some wrinkles in some game like that they haven't really had to use because they, like we said, they played like a 3-game season. And I mean, honestly, they played a 2-game season because Iowa, they scored 10 points in the first quarter against Iowa and probably wrapped it up right there. It's like, okay, we scored enough to win this game. So you probably can't even learn that much from that game. So I think Michigan has to be saving something for this Alabama game. So, I mean, we might be sleeping on them because we haven't seen what this offense is truly capable of yet.
I mean, Blake Corum had another 1,000-yard rushing year, 24 touchdowns, and it just didn't feel like it, like at all. It's so weird. And then Bill Connolly.
Well, what, like 18 of them were like 2-yard touchdowns.
Yeah. But I mean, either way, it just
definitely
doesn't feel like Blake Corum had a dominant year like he did a year ago, where he was a
No.
Heisman frontrunner for most of the year. And Michigan's not like they fell off and they're a worse team. It's just really weird how I feel about Michigan compared to a year ago and the narrative surrounding Michigan. But according to, I saw Bill Connolly of ESPN, his S&P Plus. Did you see this? They give his model gives Michigan a 69% chance to beat Alabama on Monday night. So I think it's interesting, the numbers like Michigan, but it also speaks to Alabama is not the Alabama of old. It doesn't matter that they beat Georgia, and it kind of speaks to what you're saying. They have beaten Georgia and Auburn by a combined 6 points in their last 2 games. Like you said, they needed an absolute prayer and meltdown from Auburn late inside Jordan Hare to even get in this spot to begin with. Who knows how the Georgia game goes if they review that catch and everything else. Like, who knows if you play that game 100 times, how many times Alabama beats Georgia on a neutral site. Who knows? We'll never know. But like, either way, this never felt like you got stomped at home by a great college football playoff team in Texas, but it still happened at home. You struggle at USF. You struggle at against Arkansas in the middle of the year, a bad Arkansas team. A&M gave you problems. It wasn't like you were able to walk all over A&M. Tennessee was up double digits at the half in Tuscaloosa, took a 28-0 meltdown from Tennessee in the second half to get that win. Like, there's just so many bullet points. It's like, this Alabama team is not the Alabama of old. It's not even like the Greg McElroy, AJ McCarron type years, the Blake Sims. They're not that dominant. This is not a dominant group on both sides of the ball. And Jalen Miller was playing better than he did a year ago. But like, I even seen like going into next year, he's a Heisman favorite. And I'm like, no, I don't think that's the case for Jalen Miller around this Alabama group. And I think they're playing better football now. I think Alabama is one of the 4 best teams in college football this year. But I don't think it's a slam dunk they win this game. Like, the issue is, like, Michigan's 74th in passing offense, to your point. Michigan, Matt Green, has thrown 1 touchdown pass against a ranked team this year. 1. Like, I just don't know. It doesn't mean they can't. It just means they've played, like you said, a 2-game schedule against nothing. So we don't know what they're going to do against a team like Alabama, because they really haven't been tested. I mean, Penn State has a better defense than Alabama, I would say, by and large this year. They were elite all across the board. They played really well there. But 1 touchdown pass since October, Matt Green. They've thrown 1 touchdown pass since October ended. But they also have the number 1 scoring defense in college football this year. I go back and forth on this one where I'm like, I don't think either of these 2 teams are elite, like this dominant force that are just going to run through the playoff. Like, people who think if Washington wins the Texas game, they're going to get rolled by whoever wins Michigan, Alabama. And I'm like, I don't think that's the case. I think Washington or Texas is going to give them a big time game. And I don't think it's a guarantee that either of these 2 teams who win the national title. I think this is a very, very open Final Four. And I think it's a lot more open than a lot of SEC fans think, that Alabama's, it's just a guarantee Bama's winning both these games and the SEC streak is continuing. Do you agree?
I tend to agree with what you're saying. Like, I don't think these are just like obviously they are elite. Like, these are maybe the 2 best defenses in all of college football. Like, these are elite teams.
You think Bama is one of the 2 best defenses in college football?
I think Alabama's right up there. I mean, this defense is...
You think they're better than Penn State?
Yeah, I'm taking Alabama over Penn State. Like, I mean, Penn State's right there, but they're the elite of the elite defenses. Are you taking
Florida State? I'm taking Florida State's defense over Alabama.
I don't know about that. I think this Alabama defense has been much better than they have the last couple years. And regardless, I think they're up there with the best. And I think it's offensively, just neither team is what we're used to seeing a national championship team being. I mean, these are like just pretty average offenses with really good defenses. And I would say elite defenses. So it's hard for me to pinpoint. Like, you're talking about simulations and whatever. I don't feel like you can have an accurate, you can quantify Jalen Milroe, because you look at him and like how well he plays quarterback, and I think he's like an average quarterback. Like I don't think he's like a great player. He's maybe the best athlete I've ever seen at the quarterback position, next to like Lamar Jackson or like Cam Newton. Like just an absolute absurd raw athlete, just insanely explosive. But it's all his little ad lib stuff is that really what sets this offense off. Because you look at that Georgia game and a lot in that Auburn game, like they weren't throwing for a ton of yards. They weren't running for a ton of yards. It was just like, oh, 3rd and 5. Oh, pick up chunk play here. And it's like they just kind of found ways to win. And this team, it feels like I'm not going to say it's 2009 because obviously he's a different athlete than Greg McElroy. And that defense was like, statistically just historically great, but it feels more like one of those Alabama teams that's kind of when you could still argue that they might be overachieving a little bit before they just had first rounders at every single level of their team. Like it feels like the most overachieving Alabama team we've seen under Nick Saban. And that's why if it comes down to two physical teams that are going to play the same style, like it's hard to pick against Nick Saban, especially when one's got JJ McCarthy that I'm just still not impressed by after 13 games this season, and Jalen Milroe, who's just like the ultimate X factor. Like Jalen Milroe could turn it over twice in his own territory, and Michigan could bust this thing open early. Like I think Jalen Milroe has a lot of boom or bust potential, but I think he's got a lot of that just, take off and pick up a 50-yard play with his legs and just run around and find the open man, because you just have to be spying him with two guys at all times. So if I'm going to trust anyone, McCarthy over Milroe, I do give the nod to Milroe.
All right. So where are you going? Where is your pick, Matt Green?
I'm going with the Alabama Crimson Tide, 20-17. I think this game, like you said, it's going to be low scoring. I think these two defenses are going to kind of flex for most of the game. But I think Alabama is just going to find a way to win like they've kind of done a lot this season.
Matt Green, we're going to disagree again.
Oh,
the SEC shouldn't have been in the playoff to begin with, Matt Green. They shouldn't have got in. Florida State should have had this spot. I think there's a reason they shouldn't have got in, because this was a flawed conference this year. It was a flawed conference at the top. I still think Georgia was the best SEC team this year. I think if you play Georgia, Alabama 100 times on neutral site, Georgia wins a lot more than 50% of those games. I think, look, man, Michigan has not been tested to this point. I like their depth. I like where they're at scoring defense-wise. I think this is a better matchup. Like TCU gashed them. Like Max Duggan was playing like a Heisman. He played exceptional football against this Michigan defense. I think this kind of like what we saw Texas do against Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Michigan can do that. Michigan has the dudes. Michigan has the bodies to play that same kind of style.
Oh, they do not have the receivers or the quarterback.
We don't know. JJ McCarthy hasn't done anything. Like, they don't have to. You just have the two running backs and you have the offensive line. You have the best defense. I think Harbaugh's a smart coach where Harbaugh doesn't, like, there's a reason there was a drop off with JJ McCarthy when Harbaugh wasn't around. Like, you saw the stats with and without Harbaugh for JJ. JJ's a better quarterback with Harbaugh on the sidelines helping him out. I don't think they're going to lose this game. I think Michigan is going to win this football game, and I think they're going to win it close. I think this is going to be ugly. I think this is going to be low scoring. I think they're going to play keep away. I think this is going to be a ground and pound, very physical ball game. I think Milroe is going to make some mistakes. I think we're going to see that like Milroe is not the Heisman guy. He's not a Bryce Young. He's going to be very mercurial. He's going to do some dumb stuff, and I think it's going to cost them in this game against an elite defense like Michigan's on a neutral site. So I think this is a good matchup for Michigan because I just don't think the Isaiah Bonds of the world are scare this Michigan secondary all that much. I think they're going to be okay. Like, I think this is a good matchup for Michigan. I think people read way too much into them being devastated when they saw Alabama on the screen during the college football playoff selection show. I think Michigan's going to be okay.
That didn't look great.
No. I just think Michigan's going to win this game, and I think Michigan's going to win the national title. So I think Michigan wins here. Matt Green, give me Michigan 27, Alabama 24.
Put it on the board. Wow. It would be very ironic, and I don't even want Alabama fans to have this this I don't know, card to play.
Go. Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.